when I had, so here I start this company by myself, and then I go and, we start Martex, and we're still doing work for Jeff's company.
Okay.
And at that point, he fired me and told me never ever to set foot in one of his buildings or his companies again.
Okay.
And then I came back a few years later. In fact, I remember when he saw me, he goes, "What the hell are you doing here?"
Welcome to P&L, Priorities and Lifestyle, with your host, Rob Schultz. Rob is the founder and president of Schultz Wealth. All opinions expressed by Rob and his guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Schultz Wealth Limited. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Please refer to our website for more information.
Welcome everybody to P&L, Priorities and Lifestyle. And today I have my good friend, Matt Krzysiak. Matt, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be great. We were talking a little bit earlier. Of course, Matt and I, we know each other through Vistage.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about Vistage today as well. I think we need to, because it's been an important part of your journey. But Matt has a fantastic track record, or I guess you could say career path, that we're going to talk through that involves a bunch of key areas that we talk about all the time on this podcast. Educating yourself, as well as owning your own business and making that big jump, being in the C-suite, deciding when enough is enough, all these kind of things that all of us struggle with. And Matt, it's great to have you. I was going to go through like some of your background so that we could kind of get going. So you have been CEO of Crest Solutions Group.
Yep.
I think it says here, Senior Vice President of Operations at U.S. Health Group.
Yep.
Okay. CEO and COO of National Motor Club Holdings, CIO of Specialized Association Services, and of course a consultant at CSC Consulting, consultant at Coopers & Lybrand, and founder-owner of Martex Software. There's a lot of C's in there. So you've had a phenomenal career, being able to work at high levels. And I think what I really want to do is I want to kind of dig in, start at the very beginning, and just kind of walk through and find the points where you made really good decisions that got you the success that you have today. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
I have a couple good ones. Lots of bad ones, but a couple good ones.
Okay. Well, so you started out at A&M.
Yeah,
Okay.
A&M. Yep. Yeah, I started out, got a degree in electrical engineering.
And as far as I can tell, you've never actually been an electrical engineer. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is
what
correct.
What happened there? So you got out, when was this? Was this
class of 88. So
Class of
I
88.
actually rolled into 89, but yeah, so class of 88, 89, I finally get out of school.
So I think the S&L crisis is going on. There's a lot of interesting things. So you got out in the job market, and what happened?
Yeah, so my intent all along was, okay, I've got an electrical engineering degree. I'm going to go out and be an electrical engineer.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'd go out and I'd try to get a job over and over and over. And at that time, nobody wanted to talk with me unless I had a master's degree in electrical engineering.
Okay.
And so I had to do something different. So I finally said, okay, well, let's do something different. And I actually, at the time, I was dating the girl that's now my wife. And her next door neighbor was a partner at Coopers & Lybrand, and gave my resume to him. And he said, this won't fit, but he'd circulate it. Well, I did get a call from Coopers & Lybrand and from a oil and gas partner. And this particular partner was generating systems for K1s for small oil and gas companies.
Okay.
And why in the world they would talk to someone with a double E degree? Well, it turns out that at that time they were doing a lot of work with PCs, and I had a lot of knowledge with PCs, and so I ended up getting a job there, and I was kind of the computer geek within that part of the organization.
At the very front of all that. I mean, during that period, I mean, I think we were talking earlier, you said that y'all were literally shipping PCs to these different companies, right? Yeah. And then you would grab them and bring them back. And
there was
stuff like that.
There was no internet. There was no, connected offices were very, very, very expensive. You're not going to have that. And so these are small oil and gas companies that may run, 50, 100 wells, and then they've got, investors that are in there, and they've got to keep up with all their various expenses and transactions to ultimately produce tax documents at the end of the year. So how are they going to do that? So we would actually take a PC and we would ship it to them or deliver it to them and put it in their office, and they would use it. And when tax time came around, we would go out there and grab the PC and bring the PC back.
That's great. I love
Because
it.
this is back in, the very, very early days of PCs. And so then we'd extract all that data off. It would run through some systems. We produce these K1s and ship it back out to them and so on. So this was taking care of small oil and gas companies at the time. So that's where I got started.
Okay. And then where'd you go from there?
From there, I had made a stop at another company that did commercial security work. So now, at that time, I'm starting to think, geez, I got this EE degree. I haven't really been using it. An opportunity came up to work with a company that was doing physical security, or at that time, the card key systems.
Sure.
And DFW Airport, for example, was one of the customers. And so I thought, okay, well, this is going to get me closer to my engineering roots. I'll go to work for them. And that didn't work out so well. I stayed there for a short period of time. I think it might have been a year or so. And I went back into consulting, this time with CSC Consulting here in Irving, Computer Sciences Corporation. So I did that for a while, and I met a couple of really good people, was on a couple of really good projects. We were doing an international accounting system that got rolled out for Halliburton and
Wow.
multiple countries and so on. So I got a little taste of, developing that kind of thing. And from there, I decided that I picked up some skills, and at that point, I decided, why am I doing this for someone else? I think I can do this on my own. And so I decided to take a leap and leave there and start my own company. And so at that time, I would have been about, 28, 29 years old, 30 years old, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Yeah. You just decided,
Yeah.
I just want to do this on my own.
Yeah.
I know I can do it.
Yep.
You had the confidence, and then you were telling the story earlier. So you make the decision, you quit your job, you go home, and what happens?
Yeah. So I'm all excited. Okay. I'm excited. I come home, talk to my wife. All right, I've done it. Here we go. We're on to our next chapter. And she says, well, guess what? I'm pregnant.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, exactly. So there you get the immediate, like, oh crap, what just happened here type of thing. So, well, we decided, we're not going to change anything. We're all in. So we're going to make it work. And it did.
I think that's so cool because, sometimes we forget that as we're making all these decisions and moving forward and trying to build our future, at the same time, you got to make money and support your family.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you feel this way, but I've always kind of been, that's been a real balance through my entire career, having to obviously make sure that I'm making enough money to make the mortgage payment and make sure that the kids have clothes and all that kind of stuff. And then also looking to the future and making sure that my career is moving in a direction that's going to be exciting and build good future success. It's tough. Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, at that time, my wife was working.
Yeah.
So now we have a lot of life decisions to make, right? Because here we're starting a new company. We're going to have a child. And is Sue going to continue to work, or is she not going to work, or what are we going to do? Well, we made a decision in our family. And at the time we were living in Dallas, we made the decision that we were going to adjust our lifestyle and move to a place that was affordable so she could stay at home, be a stay-at-home mom.
That's awesome.
So again, it's all those decisions you make in life, right? Do you want the fancy house and the fancy cars and all that and have a 2-income family, or do you want to do what you have to do to support a 1-income family? So we made that decision. So she was from my wife's from the Dallas area. I was from the Arlington area. So we decided to head back over to Arlington. So it was cheaper. We actually bought a house in Grand Prairie. And so we started our family there. And so as a 1-income with me being self-employed now. So we made that decision, and that worked out real well. All of a sudden, I started picking up these clients and getting more and more work. I got involved with some user groups in the area and got some exposure and some things. And next thing you know, I've got more work than I can handle on my own because I was a one-man show.
Yeah.
So I met a couple of guys while I was working at CSC, and I went back to them and said, "Hey, listen, I got all this extra work. We need to do something here." Well, we decided that instead of them joining the company I'd started, that we'd start a new one. So we started Martex Software.
Okay, and that was primarily those three
Yeah.
partners.
Yeah, in fact, it stood for Matt, Andrew, Rusty, Texas.
Yeah,
and
that's
we,
creative.
Yeah, and of course we're all excited about it, right? Three of us,
Cool,
we think this is good. We go home and each one of us tells our wives, okay, we settled on a name, we got a thing, we're going to be Martex Software, and my wife says, like the sheets.
Like what?
The sheets.
There
At
are
the
sheets?
time, there were sheets and towels their brand name was Martex.
Oh, okay. Well,
It's like, oh well, there you
Yeah.
go. So we kept it. We kept going anyway. So that grew for a long period of time, and so we picked up another partner along the way. We got up to 20 people. We had numerous clients, and we started to get approached by some outside people saying, hey, you guys interested? Would you ever consider selling this? Because at the time we had some large contracts. We were on the approved vendor list with some large groups. So Sabre, for example, we had an RF Monolithics, which is another company in here, and we had a few other large companies that we were on their approved vendor list that you didn't see a small company typically that was doing that.
No, and I'll interject because obviously you and I have become friends like in the last couple of years, I guess. And what's crazy is that I did work with Martex. I never directly with you. I always worked with Scott.
Yeah.
A little bit with Rusty.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was crazy that
small world.
We're hanging out in Vistage. That's how we know each other.
Yeah.
I was like, I remember Martex. did work with Martex way back in the day.
In fact, when you said that, I thought surely you're not talking about the same company.
That's right. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember, y'all were in a much smaller space at one point, and then y'all moved out in that really nice space.
Yeah.
That had a lot of room and a lot of people on computers sitting there typing away doing their thing. It was cool. It was exciting, and we were all young back then.
Yeah, very young. And we were doing a lot of really good things, and in fact, we were doing a lot of things that I think when I look back on it today, we were doing some great things. We were too young and stupid to know how good we were at what we were doing and where that could ultimately go.
Yeah.
Now it served Martex very well, served me well. Yeah.
Hey, it checked the first block for sure. Like I said, made sure that your kids were clothed and the mortgage was paid.
Yeah.
Don't discount that stuff.
Yeah, that's
important.
Right. Yeah, it was it was a lot of hard work, and so that worked out well. And I stayed there for several years, and when we were getting approached by some of these groups that were saying, hey, would you guys consider selling? It kicked off a whole set of conversations within the owners of Martex. Like, what are we doing here? Right? What's our plan? Because we never went into this with any sort of exit strategy or, what do we want to be when we grow up? It was just kind of like, hey, we're going to do this. Sounds like fun. We're going to make some money and this is going to be great. Well, it became obvious that all the partners had a different idea of what this was all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so ultimately I ended up selling my interest back to the other partners, and I left. And when I left, I bumped into one of this guy named Jeff Jensen, who was my very first customer.
Yeah.
He heard I was leaving, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come over and work for me and help me run this company that I'm working on?" At the time was Specialized Association Services. So I did that. Went over there as his CIO and did that for several years, and that was going well.
Yeah, let's go back for a second on the Martex deal, because I can totally relate to kind of what you're talking about. Because at the same time, we're about the same age, I think.
Yeah.
I had entered into a company, First Texas, at the same time, and that partnership, same kind of thing happened. It was a little bit later, but I kind of look back on that stuff and I was like, man, I wish we had a little bit of a better plan.
Yeah.
I think I look back on that and I think, and everything worked out fine. Okay. In my case, your case as well. But I'm like, man, I wish we had just had a little bit more foresight. Yeah. Maybe that we had, talked from a planning standpoint a little bit. And then I also feel this way. You may not feel this way, but at First Texas, I wish that somebody had just stepped up and taken charge. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, and in this case where we had 3 partners and then 4 partners, right? who
Who's
and
in
what?
charge?
Yeah, who's in
Yeah.
charge? What are we doing, right?
See,
And
that's
then
what-
when you
that's
get
what hurt
disagreement, now
us.
what?
Yeah.
We didn't have an operating agreement. We didn't
Right.
have anything that set down and said, this is how we're going to run this. This is how we're going to vote or do or establish any policies on direction or even sit down and set strategy. We had no real business mentors that were telling us, hey, here's how you get started in a business and how you should operate it in a way that'll, here's where you're going to have problems down the road. We didn't have any of that. That would have been
it's so important.
Yeah.
And, in my case, that would have benefited, me at a certain point in my career. It sounds like it would have benefited you.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that should be a takeaway for if you're out there listening and you're at that point, you don't have the right operating agreements in place. Your partnership's a little bit loose. You haven't identified somebody who's going to be the true leader in that firm and things like that. Man, I would encourage you to work on that stuff.
I agree, 100%.
And I'm going to jump around a little bit. I'm going to come back to Vistage right here.
Yeah.
Okay. When did you get started in Vistage? It was after that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was after that. So it was. It's after I left Martex and went to work for Specialized Association Services, and then from there. Now and Martex is still doing work for Specialized Association Services. So I still had here's the company I used to work for, and used to own, but they're still there doing work.
It's a tangled web.
Yeah. And there was no hard feelings. I mean,
Sure.
and Martex is good at what they do. So it was like we needed needed their support.
That's good.
It became obvious to me, though, to me anyways, after being at SAS for a few years that, I'd grown up with a technology background. I have a double E degree. And was a big computer geek. I started out, I got my first computer when I was in high school, just at the end, right before college, back in the days when it was just a box. And there's a whole story that goes behind that. But anyway, I'd grown up with a technical degree and never really had any formal business training. So everything I learned about business was running my own business, right? So I'd ran Martex for about 6-7 years, and then just being involved with clients and so on. And so it became very obvious to me that I needed additional education. So I made a decision that I was going to go back and get an MBA.
Yeah.
And so I was doing research on where am I going to go to get that done? How am I going to pay for this? All the rest of it. Well, I had talked with my dad, who he was CFO at the time of Raytheon, I think it was, or Hughes Aircraft, one of the big ones, whatever.
Sure.
And he was ready to give me a loan. He was ready to loan me the money so I could do it. I have to pay him back in interest, So we had set up a whole loan schedule and everything else like that. I'd done research on what programs I wanted to look at. I'd looked in the area, the DFW area. I settled on the SMU Executive MBA program. And so I went back and did that. And when I went back to go talk to Jeff Jensen, the guy I work for, one of the great things that he did for me is he came back in and I said, hey, I'm going to go back and think I'm going to go back to school and get an MBA. And he said, hey, I think that's good. And he said, how are you going to pay for it? And I said, well, I've worked a deal out with my dad. I'm going to get a loan, and I've already looked at vacation schedules, and I can do this. I can use all my vacation, all my holidays, and this, that, and the other. And he came back, his answer was, well, we have a tuition reimbursement program. And I said, well, I didn't expect that to be for a, $90,000 MBA program. I thought that was for like the community college or whatever. He said, doesn't say it's not.
No, it's really cool. Yeah.
So he ended up paying for that whole thing. The deal I had is he said, hey, how about this? He said, I'll pay for it. Make sure you work for me for at least 3 years after you graduate. And if you leave early, then you got to pay me back a prorated amount.
Yeah, so that sounds like the deal I had with the U.S. Navy.
Yeah, yeah. So that actually was great. And then on top of that, as far as the time was concerned, he said, "Don't take any of your vacation to do this. You just go do what you need to do, and take care of that." So
that's so cool to have.
And I'll come back to Vistage. I'll tell you where Vistage fits in too.
Yeah. So you did certainly went back, got further education where you felt you needed it because you're just a super success oriented guy, always trying to identify where you need skills and so forth.
Right.
And then where does that lead us back to Vistage?
Yeah, so that helped out really round out. It filled in some of the blind spots or the empty spots I had and what I thought I knew. It validated a whole lot of what I thought I knew. In my mind, I'm thinking, I think I know how to run a business. So from one perspective, it said, I can look at this and say, I've been doing it right. Yeah, okay, I'm doing that right. And then on the other hand, it helped get me, some formalized things in finance and accounting and some other areas along the way. So anyway, I graduate from there. I'm feeling pretty good about what's going on. And Jeff Jensen again comes back to me. Their family owns a lot of different companies, everything from small companies to huge, public companies and so on. And at the time, they had just purchased National Motor Club. And so Jeff said, "Hey, why don't you come over and help me run this National Motor Club?" So I went over there as his COO. And when I did that, I ran that as a COO for a while, and he finally said, "Hey, it sounds like you got this. Why don't you take the keys and you run this as CEO? Let's
cool.
keep this going."
Okay.
And it was about that time. That's when I got involved with Vistage. So this is that long story to get to, we ask, how did I get to Vistage?
Yeah. So at this point, you're running the show. You're the CEO, so you run the show, and then you go back even for additional consulting, like help and assistance at that point.
Yeah.
And Vistage fit the block for that.
Yeah, exactly. So now, because again, when you think about, I got the technology background, I got the background that I got from the MBA program, where you get a little bit of cultural stuff and you get this, but now the big thing in running a business is the people and the culture and getting a lot of that right.
And not only that, but I think that Vistage helps you with some of that problem solving and planning. You go back to, for instance, the Martex situation,
Oh yeah.
If you had somebody with some experience, you should bounce in they would have gone, "Hey guys, y'all need an operating team."
Exactly.
Or like, so there are 3 of y'all or 4 of y'all. So who's in charge? Things like that. And so what's your plan exactly? What's the exit plan here? It's like, exit plan.
Yeah. What's that?
I'm just trying to make my mortgage payment.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where, and it's funny if you look at, through Vistage, right? We've done those, Gallup strength find. I think it's Gallup, the strength finder, whoever it is that does that whole thing. Yeah. I think my number one is learner.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
That's obvious.
Yeah. So, so Vistage has been a big help to, I would say, round out some of the other pieces, right? Some of the soft side pieces and so on. But it's been good to have a network. Well, that's how you and I met.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And so, it's one of the few places that I know where I can sit in a room with 10 or 12 or 15 other people that are at the same level I am, with the same problems I have, with the same problems I face, with different industries that are all coming at it from the same way. As they say, when you're the CEO, sometimes it's lonely at the top. Who do you go to get additional resources? Well, that's great to be in a room with another set of 15 other, business owners that can say, well, I've attacked that this way, or I face that way. We see it every time we get together.
No question. It's powerful. So now you are firmly established in the C-suite with, kind of a medium to small size company at this point.
Yeah, we were about $30 million.
$30 million, that's a good size. Yeah. And so what's next for you? So you kind of start doing this deal for a while, right?
Yeah. So so at National Motor Club, we had done a couple of things. When they bought the company, there was just kind of a hodgepodge of stuff. You had a bit of a direct to consumer business, kind of like a AAA membership. Everybody knows AAA. National Motor Club was a competitor. National Motor Club was big in the Gulf Coast in the Southeast. So if you took Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and work your way up the coast up there to South Carolina, that whole area was National Motor Club's big foothold. So we had that. We had some contracts where we were doing the roadside assistance for insurance companies, like Hagerty, for example. If you had a Hagerty classic car insurance policy and you called Hagerty for roadside assistance, we were the ones answering the phone,
Roadside assistance for classic cars sounds like a lot.
Yeah. Well, the guy the guy that happened to be there before me is the one that struck that deal with Hagerty, and really his whole thing was he had created this white glove, soft straps, everything, that they could go market and sell to the classic car guys, because those classic car guys, I mean, they like their cars more than their wives and their kids.
Right. Yeah.
So they got to be well taken care of. So he had helped produce this, created this strategy to do that, and was very effective. Hagerty really liked it. We had a roadside assistance plan that was for RVs. So anyways, it was a hodgepodge of stuff. So one of the things I did was to say, okay, well, let's create a holding company up here, and we're going to separate these out into 3 distinct companies with different brands and different focuses. So we had National Motor Club.
Kind of restructure.
Yeah,
Okay.
restructuring. So we did a lot of restructuring, and that was good for not only what are we trying to do here and how are we going to do this. Also, now at that time, I learned a bit more of how to create an exit strategy. So, what are we going to do with these businesses? So we're having in our board meetings, we're having a lot of discussions with that. How long is the Jensen family going to hold these investments, and what do they want to do with them? Not to mention that the marketplace itself is changing quite a bit, right? So back in the day when you had when you're a card carrying AAA or National Motor Club member, if you roll the clock back to the 70s and 80s or 60s and 50s, Motor Club started in 1956. That value proposition was huge. If you broke down on the side of the road, all you had to do was get yourself to a phone, huff it to a gas station where there was a pay phone, and you could call that number on a card. You knew someone was going to take care of you. You didn't have to worry about trying to deal with locals, or because you could be anywhere in the country. By the time that the cell phone hits in the 90s, the early pieces, just standard cell phone or a flip phone, the value proposition even gets better because now you break down on the side of the road, you don't have to leave your car. You still got your card, you still got your Motor Club card, you pick it up and you got the phone in your hand and you call and you can get service.
Right.
And then of course back then the quality of the automobiles and tires and all the rest of it, there were a lot more roadside assistance events. And then comes the advent of the smartphone. Right. And so now the smartphone, you got your smartphone and the car breaks down and somebody can now pick up Google and say, I need a tow truck. And here's a list of tow trucks. Well, where's the value proposition for the Motor Club now? If roadside assistance is the big, so you still have discounts, you still have some of the other things, but, you see the value proposition go way up and then start to come down. So you think about Blockbuster or some of these other companies, right?
Sure. So external forces are always in play.
Yeah, and they'll sneak up on you if you're not paying attention to you.
And I think that's one of the hardest things. When you are in these positions of trying to strategize for your firm and think about the exit and all these kinds of things. You can have that plan, as we talked about, all mapped out. And then the circumstances change, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, exactly. So that all of a sudden now the discussions at the board level and with the ownership group, those are all changing quite a bit now.
Yeah.
Right. And most of the Motor Club companies began to pivot away from a direct to consumer relationship to now moving more towards being a roadside assistance benefit or solution within someone else's product. So
right. Yeah. My insurance company,
that's
or
right,
whatever it may be, or my credit card,
credit card, insurance companies, the warranty that comes with your automobile,
teachers association,
anything, exactly,
anything,
right.
Okay.
So after a while, the joke was you buy a cup of coffee, it comes with roadside assistance,
So it's a commoditization of the product itself. So right. I would suspect that this is when the price gets beat down more and more and more.
Yeah,
and that's a tough position to be in.
Yeah, and the Jensen philosophy with their philosophy in owning businesses and what they like to do and where they like to invest is more with a direct to consumer type of an organization.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. So they like that idea. As Jeff would say, one unhappy customer is not going to kill the whole entire business. But if Ford Motor Company is 40% of your revenue and you lose Ford Motor Company as a contract, you lost 40% of your revenue.
So Jeff is losing interest in this situation.
Yeah. So he is not really on board with the idea of it's time to really pivot and go do some of this. That's not, at least that was my understanding of his position. Yeah. And I get it. Anyway, so we had a lot of discussions like this, and so ultimately it just came down to a decision on what are we going to do next with this business. We did have a couple people that were kicking the tires, trying to see if they were going to buy it. So we did go through that process. We went in through the whole. Hey, it looks like we got a letter of intent. Someone wants to look at it, and they came in and looked at it, and so on. And for whatever reason, at the time, they decided not to go that way. So ultimately, National Motor Club is still operating today. And so the strategy was, hey, we'll just keep that. They're going to keep it, keep doing what they're doing, and they'll run it out and run it as long as they possibly can.
I mean, an income stream is an income stream.
That's right. And there still is value. Other people are still very interested in
Sure.
this. And there's huge value in that company. There's still a lot of value for
I
the
would
right
think so, yeah.
for the right owner that wants to do the right thing with it. They can take that and parlay that into all kinds of things.
Well, like you said, maybe as it gets more and more commoditized, if you can elevate up, kind of like with that Haverty type deal,
Yeah.
and create something a little bit more white glove that people want to pay for because they're tired of waiting 2 hours for a tow truck or whatever.
Yeah.
I could see that for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a bunch of people that would buy it if you could, guarantee a higher level of service within that situation.
And I think also rolling it in as a benefit for other things. So if I, for example, if I owned an association, or if I was somebody that marketed benefits, let's say to human resources departments, right? And I went to employers and said, hey, here's my suite of benefits. We have, we have a roadside assistance benefit. We might have a child care benefit. We might have all these other things because not every company can afford to go full blown with health insurance. So a lot of companies will come in with a lot of these other ancillary benefits and put a package together and at least offer something. Yeah. And roadside assistance can be a big one, especially for depending on the demographic of the employee base. It's something that may be real valuable. So I think there's a lot of value in there still.
But you weren't going to stay there.
That's right.
Point. Okay.
Yeah. So at that point, it was a discussion of, hey, okay, what are we going to do? So it was kind of a mutual agreement. It was kind of like, hey, you really don't need me here for this then. You guys can take it from here. And I mean, Jeff has been my mentor, my business mentor. I mean, he's taught me just an enormous amount of things about running a business.
And let's go back to, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff was one of your first clients with your very first consulting.
Yeah, when I made that decision to be self-employed for the first time, when I got home and my wife said, "Guess what? I'm pregnant," and now I'm self-employed. Yeah. He was my first client.
He was your first client.
He was my very first client.
And this is how much in the future? This is 20 years later now, or is it?
Yeah. So this has all come back. Yeah, this is. Oh, and there's some other stories too, because when I had, so here I start this company by myself, and then I go and, we start Martex, and we're still doing work for Jeff's company.
Okay.
And at that point, he fired me and told me never, ever to set foot in one of his buildings or his companies again.
Okay.
And then I came back a few years later. Yeah. In fact, I remember when he saw me, he goes, "What the hell are you doing here?" And I said, well, they got in a situation where I got a call on December 23rd, and they were working in a technology, technology had moved along, right?
Yeah.
And they were working in technology, and they were preparing for a big meeting that they have where they have 3,000 people show up with an insurance company that they had owned at the time. And then the meeting was on December 27th. And it was December 23rd, and they were having trouble. The guy that they had that was doing work for them had left and said, "Nope, it's Christmas, I'm done." And they needed this stuff done within 4 days. So I got a call from somebody over there, and they said, "Hey, Matt, are you working in this technology?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, we're really having a problem." I said, "Well, Jeff doesn't want me around." They said, "I don't care. We got to have this done. Can you help us?"
You've told me that story before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So anyway, showed up over there.
Showed up.
That's how we got in.
What are you doing here?
And then that then led to another relationship. So that's how I got back in and the whole thing. So yeah, Jeff and I have known each other for, my daughter's 28. So that's how I pin all this thing together. Yeah. So we've known each other for almost 30 years.
Okay.
So yeah, he's been a huge influence on my business career for sure.
Wow.
So yeah. So anyway, now we're at the end of this at Motor Club. And it's time to say, at least the end for me, right? I'm trying to make a decision on what to do. He's trying to make a decision on where he wants to go with all this. And so it's kind of a mutual agreement that I decided I would leave. I was out on, so that was a big decision. That was a big decision too, right? Because I've had this whole career with this company for a long period of time, through the good and the bad. And this guy paid for my MBA. This guy, he's just been a huge mentor for me and everything else. And so I'm making the decision to leave again, this time with nowhere to go. It's not like I said, I'm going to leave and go, find another thing. So I figured, well, I'll figure out something. And,
wow.
so that was a big step. and it was, and I did it because it was the right thing for the business at the time for National Motor Club. So here's this balance of, you've got what is the right thing for the business versus the right thing for Matt. And I always felt like, well, I'm going to land somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was the right thing for the business, so that's what we did. And Jeff was very good to me when I left. I mean, it's not like he just kicked me out the door and said, "Go away."
No, it sounds like it's something that everybody thought through very carefully.
Yeah, it was a good decision.
Okay.
So then I went to work at U.S. Health Group.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I'm out, and I had known the CEO. The CEO of U.S. Health Group at the time was also the CEO of one of the Jensen companies. So I knew him, and I knew his philosophy, and knew the culture he was building, and all the rest. We knew one another well, not well enough that we would just call each other up and say, "Hey, let's go have a beer."
Yeah.
But if we're in the same room together, hello, how are you doing? How are things going? And then the COO of that company, I knew through a completely different relationship, through more of a personal relationship, friend of mine, kind of a friend of a friend. We would play golf together and do that kind of thing. The chief marketing officer over there, I knew from a Jensen company, and he was part of the MBA program I went through.
Well, there you go. So these relationships are really important, aren't they?
Yeah,
Be
exactly.
able to make sure that you keep in contact with folks, and it's hugely important.
Yeah, as when you think it's a big world, it's a small world.
Yeah, that's right.
Think it's a very small world out there. And so anyway, I got the opportunity. So they said, "Hey, why don't you come over and help us run operations?" And their goal, they had a very, very, very focused goal with what they were doing with that company. And they were going to grow it to be $1 billion company. And the whole goal was to take it and grow it and take it public or sell it. One of those things. So extremely focused. Extremely focused on, this is the mission. Here's what we're trying to accomplish.
And let me guess, although I know the answer,
Yeah.
because they were so focused and they had that plan, they executed it extremely well.
Oh, extremely well. Yeah. So when I started there, they were about a $500 million company. And when we sold it, we were about $1 billion company.
Well, there you go. So they got their $1 billion. How long did it take to get that done?
I was there for 3.5 years that happened. So
2x.
Yeah, 2x, and exactly, going from 500 million to $1 billion in just over 3 years, right around 3 years. And so I was responsible for operations, and so my goal was, if we're going to grow the company by 2x, then we're not going to grow operations by 2x. So to make sure that we have all the efficiencies and the things we need to be able to, support the growing business without, making it more profitable, efficient. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Scale it up and so on. And so the gentleman I worked for, that was the chief operating officer over there, Conrad Kober, one of the smartest guys I've ever worked with. He was phenomenal to work for. He was very supportive, great. He and I saw eye to eye, and so we had a very common vision of how we would go attack things and get things done. And just, so he was great to work for, just an overall great mind. And I learned a lot from him. I didn't know a lot about the health insurance business. I knew a lot about, coming from National Motor Club, very similar, right?
Yeah,
it's very similar. Yeah. We're collecting dues. Health insurance is premiums. Okay, great. We have claims. They have claims. We have a network of providers. They have a network of providers. So a lot of things are very, very similar. It's just the differences and the nuances of the health insurance. And then overlay the regulatory environment, and that's a whole different game. The health insurance regulatory environment's
I'm
horrible.
Familiar with what you're talking about there for sure.
Yeah.
It's regulatorily very difficult.
Yeah.
But I think it's so cool. So, so you've got a leader that you trust, that's, smart and saying, we're going to go from here to here. And then you said, we were really aligned. Well, of course you were aligned.
Yeah.
Because he said that this is what we're going to do, and you had bought into it.
Yeah.
How can you not be aligned when somebody is saying, well, this is what we're going to do? Are you on or not?
Yeah, right.
And I think we discount that so often.
Right. So I knew what I was in for going in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you were in for it. You were excited. Yeah, and it worked, and you won. It was awesome.
Right, and some people, it's a decision point, right? So here I've been the guy. The guy in the CEO role now. So I've been in that CEO role at this time for 8 years or so. And now I'm going to leave there and go to another role over here where I'm just a senior vice president of operations. So I'm not even in these.
That's 20 times bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And I was okay with that,
Mhm.
and at that stage, I'd done what I'd done, and I felt like I had more to learn. And I learned a lot from being over there at U.S. Health Group. I mean, Troy McQuaig, the guy that's the CEO over there, he is just a phenomenal leader. I mean, just an unbelievable, very dynamic, one of the best speakers I've ever seen, really motivational, but he's a very good business leader as well. I mean, very good CEO. Like I said, he is so laser focused on his goals and objectives, and lays it out, reinforces it over and over and over. I wish I got a good education over there. I learned a lot there. I wish I would have had that back when I was running Motor Club. I think I could have done some things different, but we all look at that.
We all feel that way.
Exactly. Wouldn't I like to go back to when I was first self-employed, knowing what I know right now with everything else, right?
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So y'all did that. Y'all got to $1 billion. Were able to sell it off. To United Healthcare.
Yeah. So there was, and they went out, with the big investment bankers.
Sure. So you got to experience that for the first time.
Yeah. So big investment. Now I wasn't in the meetings with the big investment bankers, but I'm supporting all the, the information and so on. So Conrad's going to the meetings, and I'm learning about what's going on through those. So I'm pulling together a bunch. So we have to go through the due diligence, for almost a full year before we finally get to the point where we get a buyer, and the buyer comes in, and it's United Healthcare, and they buy the business. And so that was an interesting transition.
Yeah. So what are your options at this point? So now, so there's United Healthcare, which is huge.
Yeah.
And was there a place for you there?
Yeah. So they, which I'm very thankful, they held me in very high regard.
Yeah. Sure.
So I had an opportunity. I was getting sucked into the operations group inside of United Healthcare, where there was a team of about 7 other executives at that point that ran all of the operations in one line of business, where there was 300,000 employees or something ridiculous like that. So this is a big role.
This is a really big role.
Yeah. So this was a really big role, and so and of course they had offered me, some things to stay along the way, right? Stay for a couple of years. And because of the level in which I was transferred in at United, you have options for some nice bonuses and stock options and grants and all kinds of other stuff. So it was now we're talking about, big company executive compensation packages and so forth.
Oh yeah. This is the big time.
This is it. Yeah.
And you can move up that ladder to some really high level stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So how'd you feel about that?
Well, it's on the one hand, it's exciting and it's great. You look at it and you say, wow, there's some opportunity here, and there's a lot of great opportunity and good things I can do. On the other hand, I'd grown up as a small company guy. Mm-hmm. And I liked that small company feel. And then at this stage in my career, at my age, it was, I have a decision to make. What am I going to do? Am I going to stay there and be the big company executive with United, or do something different? So it was a lot of introspective on, what do I want out of life? Where am I? Where do I need to go? And all the rest of it.
Okay, so this is super important right here.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is a point that most, if not all, of the people that we work with get to at a certain point.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that went into your decision. Okay, so first of all, I kind of know some of this because we've talked about it before. Mm-hmm. Your personal financial situation is really good at this point. Mm-hmm. Okay, because all along, and so so from very early, but when my daughter was born, my wife and I recognized that we probably should start saving some money for college. That was the whole thing, right? That's always it, right? We ought to be saving some money for college. The funny thing is, I'll go ahead and cut to the chase on that, is that ends up being just a super easy compared. I mean, that's like nothing.
That's right.
Most of us can cash flow that deal, but that was what we were really worried about when the first kid hits the ground.
That's exactly right. And so a friend of mine had referred me to a financial advisor who happened to go to the same church we went to. The name would be on the back of the bulletin, I remember seeing.
Oh, wow.
And so we went to him, and anyway, he kind of got us on the same track, or got us on the right track. We did all the stuff that an advisor would do. We looked at the insurance, we looked at this, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so from very early on, I started saving money. His whole thing was save, 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 save. Give, every month he's pulling money out of my account every single month. So I never see it, right? So that helped. The Jensen family was very, very generous with their 401k program. That the matching and so forth that they had and the investments we made, it did very well. So by the time I left there.
Let me go back. So it's matching.
Yes.
And I think we were talking about it's dollar for dollar to 8%.
Yeah, it's 7 or 8%.
Yeah. So if you were doing, if you did 5%, you'd get 10% of your pay dropped in. Just, so if you had done 0%, how much money was being put into your 401k? So
they actually would, even if you didn't contribute, they would contribute on your half. So they had some other things. It was so generous to the employees. It was amazing.
Yeah,
right?
But in order to get the match, you had to actually step up.
Yeah. So the thing
I'm just saying that because it's like you still have to take advantage of this.
Oh yeah, it's free money.
It's free money, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And we all have good reasons for that. There's a lot of things that we can do with our money, right?
Yeah,
but you took advantage of it.
Yes,
you were saving all along, so you had all these really good habits that put you in a position where now you're making this decision as to whether or not you wanted to do, the driving the fast lane, which sounded cool and had a lot of really cool stuff to it.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't a huge financial decision because of all the success you'd had saved.
Yeah, so I had a lot of good success in building that 401k that I had. That so when I left Motor Club finally, that was a really good chunk of change. And then when we sold the company from U.S. Health Group to United, there was some money that came that way there, right? So I had some more. Roll all that together and kind of look forward, and I'm in a position now where I don't necessarily have to go out and have the same kind of job. And at the same time, coincidentally, both my kids are now out of college and gone out of the house.
Yeah,
right?
So that's come down, and then so we talked about having sufficient assets.
Yeah.
To be able to make a decision at kind of the age that we've gotten to. Old.
Yeah.
Are we old yet? Sure,
yes.
Not, right? Maybe.
Well, maybe
so. And then there's the other.
I still look in the mirror and say, "Who is that guy?"
No, I know. Well, let's not go there. But on the other side is lifestyle. Okay?
Yes.
And you had made a decision early on, the single income.
Yes.
Which we did too, by the way.
Yeah.
So we had 4 kids.
Yeah.
And there was no way, that we were,
Yeah, right.
It needed to be single income because, that's a full-time job, Shelley. And
absolutely.
With 2 kids it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's a huge deal, in my opinion. So,
and my wife kind of acts as my administrative assistant for so many things, right? She takes care of so many things for me.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine if she was working.
No. Yeah. I mean, so much of your success is due to the fact the support that you've had at home.
Absolutely.
And y'all had made this decision early on the rat race deal to get out into our Grand Prairie, Arlington, where it's cheaper and where you could save and raise a family. And now at this point, we
have another decision to make.
Your lifestyle is good.
Very good, yeah.
But you're not like desiring a huge amount.
Well, that's it. So the discussion my wife and I had at this point was,
I want to get into this.
Okay. So now it's been, let's say it's a year. We're a year past the transaction. So I'm now working with United Healthcare for a year. So I've been there a year. So I got a feel now for how's this company operate? What's the world really going to look like for me? What's it going to be like? Where am I at? What's going on? And so we have some decisions to make. And so when my wife and I sit down and we say, okay, so what do we want out of retirement? What do we really want? So is it I want to make sure we have a ski chalet in Beaver Creek, and I want a place on the water in Destin or wherever the case may be. Well, if that were the case, then I got a lot more work to do, right? I got to go make a lot more money. But my wife, luckily enough, and I were both on the same page and said, if we can maintain the same lifestyle we have now So we live in the same house, we drive the same kind of cars, we go on the same kind of trips, we do the same kind of travel, we go out to dinner, we do all the things. My wife and I love to travel. We take a lot of trips. We go on vacation quite a bit. If we can,
you just got back from 21 days in Italy?
Yeah, 21 days in Italy.
Nice,
and we enjoyed it so much. We just booked another one. We're going to Paris and Barcelona and the Mediterranean again next year this time we're going for like 28 days.
Nice. Very nice.
So, and then we go to Cabo every year. We've been to Cabo. We go to Cabo every year. We've gone there for the last 25 years, every year, every single year. We don't.
Yeah. And that's your lifestyle.
That's
where
it.
it is.
Yeah.
And so that's so cool that y'all are, first of all, communicating all this on all this. And the second is that you understand the trade-offs.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it'd be awesome to have a place, Beaver Creek. I think.
Oh yeah, of course it would.
Yeah, it'd be great. But you're making these decisions and understanding, how one decision affects the other.
Yeah, and when I took the job at U.S. Health Group, we had moved. We decided we had always lived in the Arlington area. Mm-hmm. We were in Dalworthington Gardens and had a really nice big home.
Yeah,
very big home in Dalworthington Gardens, and we decided to downsize. Yeah, and so we've downsized. So the house we live in now is in Southwest Fort Worth, and downsize is a relative term, right? So
sure.
we downsized to 3,600 square feet.
It's a nice, it's a nice area too.
Yeah, and it's a perfect house for us. We, it's just the two of us now, and we got guest rooms. So if the kids or anybody else comes over, and anyway, so all that being said, the whole idea on discussion of lifestyle, what are we going to do? We just decided, we'll just maintain the same lifestyle. Well, and I said, if we want to just maintain this lifestyle, I don't need to work there anymore.
There you go.
I don't have to do that. And she said, well, that would be good because I'd rather have you at home more often. And she said, you're in a much better place when you're not, having to deal with all the stress of that.
There you go.
And so I said, okay. So I said, all right, well, then I'm going to leave. And I said, just recognize I'm leaving a big compensation package that could be there for the next, it'll be there until whenever I want to retire.
Right.
That could be worth, lots and lots of money. And she said, I don't, what are we going to do with it? And I said, yeah, that's okay. So we decided that I would leave. And so I did. And I just took some time off. So for almost the first year, I did just a little bit of stuff here and there.
Yeah.
And then I've just decided, what? Okay, I've had enough of that sitting at home doing nothing. I need to start doing something again. So I spun up this Crest Solutions Group thing. And I'm really it's two things. I'm taking on clients I really enjoy that can help. And, I focus on operations, efficiency. My strong suit, given my background with everywhere that I've come.
Operations, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I apply technology and so on to operations. And I really got into this data analytics about, 10 years ago. And so I do a lot with that. I actually spoke at one of the Tableau conferences in the very early days. In fact, I was invited by the CEO of Tableau when they were just getting rolling, Krzysiak. I was invited to come speak to their company at one of their company meetings. So they flew me to Seattle, and I went up there and spoke to them. I also spoke at one of their conferences, and so anyway, I enjoy that stuff. I mean, I enjoy the data analytics. I enjoy the operations. I guess it's if you're old enough to remember the A-Team. What was that? Hannibal, one of those guys.
Yeah.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I sit in operations.
Thing now.
Yeah.
So you're doing this, and you're doing it at the pace that you want to.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. And what is that? So I know because we've talked about it. I mean, you've been asked to do some large projects that you said no to,
right? And
had the courage to say no to.
Yeah.
And then you have some other stuff that you're doing that I think sounds like you're having a lot of fun with. And
everything from kind of coming full circle. The National Motor Club guys called me and said, "Hey, what we do over here, and we could use some help in the IT area." So I'm giving them, a couple days here and there to help them keep their IT operations going. I'm doing that. I've also started to do work again with the Martex software. So that company's still kicking and still going. The one I started.
Life's a little bit of a circle.
That's it. Yeah. So I'm back doing work with those guys again. We're working on some interesting projects and doing some things there. I have a couple other clients in the area, that I do work for.
Okay.
So it's a little bit here and a little bit there, and it's really nice to be able to come in and really provide some focused. It's like a rifle shot. You come in and you can get something done very quickly for them. They see a lot of value. Yeah,
like
project.
Like
right.
a point A to a point B.
That's right.
Kind of. Yeah. I would really enjoy that. I think, being able to come in and just kind of like, okay, there's a problem. I'm going to create the solution, and then we're out. That sounds great.
And so one of the biggest challenges I'm facing right now is I get in with a client, I start down a project, they see how well it's going, they're so satisfied with it. It's like, well, can you help us over here? Can you help us over here?
Yeah,
can you help us over here?
Yeah.
And so next thing you know, which would be great. So the decision I have to make is, okay, well, Matt, what are you trying to do? Are you going to be the small boutique firm that does a couple things here? Because I've got enough where I could hire 4 or 5 people, and next thing you know, I'm right back in the rat race of being a self-employed, with a whole staff of people. So those are some of the battles I'm going through right now, and I have to make that decision. And I don't know where I'm.
But it's good to have options.
It's it.
Sounds like you know how to make decisions, so it shouldn't be a problem. I'm not worried about you at all. I think you'll do well.
Well, it's on that decision subject. Troy McQuaig, one of the CEO over there at U.S. Health, he used to have this saying. He said, once you decide, you can now focus 100% of your efforts on implementing the decision.
I love that.
The longer that you waffle around trying to figure out what are you going to do, then it's the more you're going to waste time and not get focused on what it is you're trying to solve.
Decide, commit,
that's it.
Focus, make it happen.
Just go make it happen. That's it. Just make the decision, go. So so over the years, I had that philosophy before. He had the same philosophy. And so like even on this trip with my wife, we talked about going back over to, going to go to France and Barcelona and that whole thing. As we were talking about, she goes, oh, I had such a great time. You'd like to do it. I was like, just book it in. Let's go. And she's like, well, no. You want to go. I want to go. It sounds like fun. Boom. Let's book it. And we'll figure out how we're going to make it happen.
Yeah. No, well, clearly through your story, you had that from day one because, the story about your, now 28-year-old daughter and you decided you're going to go self-employed. And now you're committed and you're just going to do it. Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's several parallels here. But my 28-year-old daughter was born almost the exact same time that I went 100% commission with Principal Financial Group in 1994.
There you go. Yeah,
I was like, yep, I'm here. We're going to go do this, and I have one choice, and that is to be successful at this.
Yeah. And then, and then my son, who is, he just graduated from A&M.
Tommy.
Tommy. Yeah, you've talked to Tommy, I think.
Yeah, he's adult.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
There you go.
That was awesome.
That's right. He is a proud card carrying Delt member for sure.
Good. Very good.
Yeah, so he's doing well. And that was also, when we were growing up, when we make a decision on how we were going to run our family and lifestyle, I knew with Tommy, with Bree, there wasn't a lot for me to get involved with her. She was into dance and gymnastics and a lot of that kind of stuff.
You didn't do dance and gymnastics?
That was mom thing.
Okay.
Mom did a lot of that. But
you didn't do it while you were growing up.
Oh, no. Of course not, no. And that wasn't my thing. The sports guy for me. So anyway, I knew with Tommy as he was getting, I'd be, needed time. So I helped coach baseball, football, all those kinds of things. So again, those life decisions we make on how you're going to manage your family, just like you would anything else, we made decisions to make sure I had the time that I could go do those things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's all worked out. I got great kids. They grew up real well. And,
yeah, you do.
Yeah, they're now out and self-sufficient. And
yes.
I remember when I graduated college, I remember my dad said to me, when I graduated, I'm all excited. I get home, I'm going to live at the house right now. And he sits down at the kitchen table and he says, okay. He said, you got 90 days for what? To get a job and get out of the house. I said, what? He goes, yeah, 90 days. You got 90 days. He goes, I've done my job. He goes, it's time for you to be a grown up. You got your degree, go get a job and get out.
Yeah, my son and I, who just graduated from UT, just had a similar experience.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And so I'd always told the kids the same thing. I'm like, hey, listen, when you guys get out. But now one thing my kids both did that was really good is they both, during their college years, they both did internships.
Uh-huh.
And Tommy did, I think, 3 of them. And Bree did a couple. She worked with Disney. She did 2 different Disney internships,
yeah.
and then had another one. Anyway, those were hugely instrumental in them getting jobs right out of school.
Yeah.
So they graduated and went right to work. So that took the pressure off of me, which was good.
That's good.
Get them off the payroll.
Well, excellent. Well, so if somebody wants to get in touch with you, Matt, and talk further about maybe get some guidance, maybe even from a consulting standpoint, something like that. Is there a good way for them to contact you? If you'll tell us, we can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. So you can go to my website, which is just a small, simple little website, crestsolutionsgroup.com, all spelled out.
Okay.
Solutions with an S. Yeah, you can go there and that'll have contact information on there. My cell phone number, I'm happy to give that out, but it's 817-320-9938. Give me a call there, and the website, you can get me on email, all the rest of it, contact info's there.
Yeah, that's great. Really appreciate that. And just knowing you, I know you're the kind of guy who wants to help and support and, and provide, guidance, just like the same, Jeff, who is so many people who helped you through your career.
Oh yeah.
There are guys out there that helped me through my career that now I'm at the point where, we're both at the point where we kind of want to do that for some others, I think.
Oh, I've had, I mean, I could list 10 people that have helped me along the way from it's so amazing because my dad was always a big influence. We talked about Jeff. We talked about, Troy McQuaig over there, Conrad Kober over there. There was a woman that's still a very good friend of mine, Lisa Davis. We've worked together since the very first day that I set foot at SAS, and she ran operations there. She and I are still good friends. I've learned a ton from her. She's just an amazing woman. There's just people everywhere, right? Even the people I worked with at Martex, at Rusty, Rusty and I are still working together. Rusty taught me a lot, and we worked together at CSC, and then, we own Martex together. So, I mean, I got people that have been hugely, you look back and there's those key people, you learn so much from them. And most of them I'm still in contact with today, which is great. So I haven't really lost contact with them.
That's good. And being on here is giving back. And I really appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, one more.
Yeah.
I got to mention Stivler and Vistage. I got to mention Stiv. So as a Vistage member, I was in Vistage about 12 years ago for a long period of time. While I was at U.S. Health Group, I was not a member, and now I'm back. And of course, Stivler as a chair, he's been hugely supportive. We've gone through some ups and downs and rounds around, but he's been great. He's been a huge beneficial help in numerous occasions with me personally and just with the business. And I still appreciate what he does. He's good.
Yeah, he sure is. Yeah, very good. Well, so we appreciate everybody being on today with us. Matt, you being with us. We encourage you to subscribe to this if it's something that makes sense for others to share. And we really appreciate everybody being on today. And we hope to bring these out to you about every other week. This is kind of our pace right now. And thank you very much. Everybody have a great week. Take care.
Bye.